Hello, everyone. My name is Sophia, and I'm a client success manager at ClickUp. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to attend our Freelancers webinar today. I'm really looking forward to showing you how you can use ClickUp not only in a team setting, but also just to manage your own personal business in whatever way works best for you. We have about almost 200 participants so far in attendance, which is really awesome to see. I'm sure we'll have some more people jumping in shortly. And I would love to get a sense of where you're all tuning in from. So if you'd like to leave me a Zoom chat message to let me know, I'll be happy to give you a shout out. It's always exciting to see people from all over the world attending the webinars. Yeah, so lots from the UK, Slovenia, India, Sweden. Wow, I can't even read these fast enough. There's so many. Berlin, Canada, of course, lots from the US, all over the country. South Africa. Wow, it's pretty late for you over there. Ghana. This is really awesome to see. So thank you so much for taking the time to tune in, and I hope you'll get some valuable information out of our session today. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started, in case you haven't attended one of our webinars before. The webinar today will be about likely 30 to 40 minutes long, during which I'll be covering, of course, everything you need to know to get started as a freelancer in ClickUp. But if you have any questions that come up as I'm going through the content, please feel free to send those in via the Q&A tab in your Zoom menu. We have several customer support reps in attendance who will be happy to answer your questions. But just note that the Zoom chat tab is a great place to chat internally with one another, but the team won't be moderating that for questions. So the Q&A tab is the one to submit your questions to. This webinar will be recorded. So at the end of it, we will post it on our website, and you'll also get a recording of it sent to you once it's been processed. And I'll also be leaving some time for live questions at the end. So if you want to send in, again, questions to the Q&A tab, I'll take a look at some of those and answer the freelancers questions at the end. Awesome. We've got some people from South Australia, in parentheses, the land down under. Thanks for that, Carolyn. Adelaide, Utah, Paris. And Tony, I wanted to clarify that the attendees are muted, but you can always send in some questions to the Q&A tab. Yeah, so it's great to see everybody here. So that should be all of the housekeeping notes. So let me jump into the actual content. And again, just to reiterate, this is being recorded, so we'll be sure to send you a copy of that once this is over. All right. So our webinar today is going to have 4 main components. So when it comes to managing your freelance workflows in ClickUp, I'm going to start by showing you how you can organize your projects and tasks using the ClickUp hierarchy. Then I'm going to tell you a little bit about how you can manage billable hours and expenditures with custom fields and reports. We'll also be chatting about how you can communicate effectively with clients without leaving the platform, and how you can set achievable goals and track their progress in real time. So if you're just maybe this is your first time ever seeing ClickUp, don't be put off if you don't know how to use all of the features I'm covering today. This is really just an opportunity for you to see what's possible. And if you're looking for more tools on the actual mechanics of how to build out your hierarchy, spaces, folders, and lists, I'll be showing you some support references at the end that you can utilize to learn more about that. But let me just start off by giving a quick overview of the ClickUp hierarchy for those of you that might be new to ClickUp. So as most of you know, our tagline here at ClickUp is one app to replace them all. And the idea of this mission is that this is not only a tool that you can use to organize tasks and projects, it's also a place where you can store docs, notes, forms, conversations. Really, it's meant to help you reduce context switching and keep everything that you need to be productive within one place. And the ClickUp hierarchy is at the core of that mission. So this is going to let you have a proper place to organize all of your different projects, but also not mix anything up. In the case of a freelancer, you'll always have a proper place to deposit everything you're working on and keep everything straightforward for yourself and for your clients. So the first thing that you'll do when you join ClickUp is to create a workspace. And you can think of this as your office. This is just the container for everything that you're going to be working on in ClickUp. It's just the one ultimate place to do your work. Next, you have spaces. So spaces break up your workspace at a high level. If I was doing this webinar for a team setting, I'd likely suggest making spaces for different departments or teams. But of course, this webinar is oriented for freelancers. So in this case, I made 2 different spaces, one to manage my sales pipeline and one to manage projects that I'm working on for clients. Now, in my use case, I am a ClickUp consultant. So the service that I offer is building out people's accounts, helping them to be trained and onboarded into the platform. And then I can also build out custom training documentation and videos for clients. So this is kind of what I'm using ClickUp to organize. So inside of my sales space, we have folders and lists. So folders are the 3rd level of the hierarchy, and they can be things like projects, buckets of work related to the space, really anything that helps you to break up the space at a high level. So I've created a folder here called CRM to manage all of my customers. And the list in here is called Accounts and Opportunities. And this is actually a folder template that is available for anyone that wants to use it. So just to give you some insight, once you create your space, you'll be able to click on the plus sign next to that space in your left sidebar and use a template. So if you want to use this template that I'm going to be going over with you today, just search for CRM and you'll find that under the sales section. And then just click use template to drop that into your space. Now, inside of my list, accounts and opportunities, we have tasks. So tasks are at the bottom of the hierarchy, but they're definitely really, really important and where you're going to be spending the majority of your time. In this case, it's where I'm storing all of my clients' information. So I have a task for every client, whether they're just a lead that I'm working with or an existing client that I'm getting ready to submit a proposal to. You can add things like custom fields. So in this template, we have various custom fields to keep track of important information in our tasks, such as opportunity size, my main point of contact at this company, any notes related to this client's account, and even a secondary due date field. So you do have your standard due date field, which is a great way to see all of your tasks scheduled out on a calendar or a timeline. But this template also includes a secondary date field, so I can keep track of a next step date I have with this client. This also includes a drop-down custom field. So in this case, I've used it to indicate what ClickUp plan this client is interested in. But you could use a drop-down field for really anything. For example, if you sell multiple services, you could have a drop-down for each service that the client has indicated he or she is interested in. So the one other thing to mention about this template is the statuses that are included. So these are the actual steps that the tasks move through, commonly known as workflows. And it's how we keep track of my sales pipeline as a new lead comes in, and then I can determine if they're qualified or not, and also indicate if I've done my intro call with them yet, if I've demoed ClickUp for them, and then finally, if I've given them my proposal and if they decide to proceed with my service. So these statuses are highly customizable. You can always edit statuses and create a different workflow that works best for you, but these are the ones that are included up front in that folder template I created here. In ClickUp, we also have what are called task views. which allow you to see your tasks in different ways. So in some other project management platforms, you're pretty restricted, and maybe you only have the choice to see tasks in a list format like this, or maybe you're restricted to a board. But in ClickUp, we let you choose how you like to work. So for example, I can see these exact same tasks in a board layout. And this is really handy if you are someone that likes to view tasks arranged by status. So it makes it really easy for me to visualize my pipeline, see which tasks are in early phases, which ones are nearing completion. And I can actually even drag and drop my leads between these different columns as I make progress with them. One other cool feature that I'd recommend playing around with actually in both the list and board views is the grouping feature. So if I did want to change up these column headers and perhaps group by plan or segment, anything like that, I can group by a custom field or maybe a due date so that I can see my tasks arranged in a different way. In this case, I've grouped by due date so I can keep track of my opportunities that are overdue and what I have to do today and in the future. Now let's chat a little bit about a page view that I'd recommend everyone explore. So page views are, in contrast to your task views, really great ways to keep track of high-level resources related to larger projects. So for example, maybe you would want to create a doc view to keep track of your playbook for recruiting new clients. So the doc is really perfect for keeping track of any sort of knowledge base. You could also make a project plan in here that you could share with a client. Anything that you could do in a platform like Notion or even in a Google Doc, you can do directly in a ClickUp Doc view. And these can also include nested pages. So if you want to create a pretty expansive project plan that has multiple sections, you can absolutely do that. And like I mentioned, you can share these with people outside of ClickUp. So once you do onboard a new client, this doc could be shared with someone outside of ClickUp via the public link option. So you could just simply copy that link and send it to the client. One other view that I've created here is the form view. And this is perfect for streamlining your information intake process. In this case, I've created a form which potential clients can fill out to learn more about the services that I offer. So when I create this form and someone submits it, it's going to add a new task in ClickUp that I can take action on. You'll notice I added in some branding at the top too. So you can even add your own custom branding image to a form. I've added a title that someone will be able to see to get them excited about my services, and then just a little description asking them to provide some more information about their use case. Now, the next things that we need to add in here are some fields that the potential client is going to be able to fill out. So these include both some standard task fields and custom fields. So first I'm going to add in a task name. And I'm going to rename this to make it a little more user-friendly on the client's end. So, and again, this just changes how the client sees it. It doesn't change the actual name of the field for me. And I'll add in a description here. Describe your goals. You could also add something like a due date field so that they could tell you when they want to start this process. You can add attachments if you want them to attach relevant files to their request. And then you could do something like add in a email contact that they can fill out for you, or I'll throw in an opportunity field as well so that they can tell me what's your budget. So once you get this form, however you like it, you can choose if you want all of your fields to be required or maybe make a few optional fields. And then you'll be able to share that form link with people outside of ClickUp, either by embedding it, for example, on your website, or just sharing a direct link with someone outside of ClickUp. So I'm going to go into the viewing mode for this form now, just to show you what it looks like on the client's end. So let's say that I'm a new potential client and I'm ready to fill out a request here. So I'll put my name, my goals, very detailed goals there. And then I'll put my desired start date. And my budget is $5. So once I submit that, I get a little message that my submission has been received. And that is going to be added as a task into our accounts and opportunities list. I've also made sure that all the tasks are automatically assigned to me. That might be a handy thing for you if you have, several other people working in your ClickUp workspace, but it's not mandatory. So let's see what it looks like now that we're in the list view. So we can see that this new task has been created and it's in that opening status, new lead. So I know this is a new person I need to reach out to. And if I open it up, I can see things like the opportunity size, the description, the client's name, as well as when they want this service to get started. So from there, I can just start reaching out to them via whatever contact information they provided, and I can use things like either the comment thread over here or maybe in my task description to keep track of any notes I get after speaking with the client. One cool thing about our descriptions in here, which can also be found in our doc views, is the ability to add rich editing. So by using our / command feature, if you just hit the / key on your keyboard, you can add all sorts of rich editing. Like, for example, I might add a header in here for call notes. I could add some bullet lists. Whatever I want can be added directly in this description that I can reference later. So once I've actually, sold my product and I'm ready to actually move forward with a deal that I have won, I need to have a place where I can actually manage the projects that I'm going to be doing for my clients. So I've created a separate space called projects where I can organize that work. Now, the structures that you'll see in here, the folders and lists, aren't ready-made templates, but I'll explain to you step by step how I actually built these out. So in this case, I have created a folder for a client that I'm going to be onboarding and training in ClickUp. And each list in this folder represents a phase of their process with me. So we have the onboarding list, in which we'll conduct the kickoff call, set up their user roles, and align on our hierarchy setup. And then we'll move into our training task. So they purchased 3 hours of training with me. So I'm going to train each of their user role types on how to use ClickUp. And then the third phase is success. So we're going to set up a quarterly business review meeting to make sure that everything's going well. And then I'm also going to do an expansion training consultation for their team. So whenever you're ready to create a new folder or list on your own, you can always do that by clicking on the plus sign here next to the name of your space, and you'll see the option to add in a new folder or list from scratch, or use a template like I showed you a little earlier in the sales pipeline space. So now that we get a sense of how this folder is laid out, I also wanted to point out couple of other useful features I've added in here. First of all, your start and due dates in this case are really important, especially if you're interfacing with a client in ClickUp. Setting a timeline obviously is a really important part of setting them on the right journey and making sure that they feel confident that you have a plan for when you're going to fully deliver your services. So I would always recommend adding dates to your tasks when relevant by clicking on the calendar icon here. So that can include a start date as well if you want, or just a due date. I also really like to use priority flags because they allow me to set a level of urgency for my tasks. And I can even add grouping so that I can group by priority as well, just like we saw in the board view. You might want to create a view just grouped around your urgent, high, normal, and low priority tasks. So once I have made all of these dates, I wanted to show you another type of task view that you might be interested in, which is the Gantt view. So thus far, we've been in our list and our board views, but the Gantt view is just another way of seeing these same tasks, but this time they're going to be oriented around their dates. So in this view, I can see all of my scheduled tasks for this whole training and onboarding project that I'm doing for my client. In the Gantt view, right now I'm viewing a monthly scale, so I can show my client week over week how we're going to begin from start to end with this. But you could change the date scale if you wish to daily, hourly, maybe even a monthly or yearly scale if it's a really long project. And this is the perfect view for me to share with a client outside of ClickUp. So you'll notice that when you create these different views, you have a public sharing option over here. So by clicking on this button here, I can make this view public by flipping this toggle on. And I can send this link directly to a client so they can actually see what I am working on and what my plan is for their training. One other cool thing that you can do in a public view that you share with a client is choose whether this person should be able to open up tasks in the view. So maybe they might want to see exactly what you're planning for your training tasks. So you could let them open up those tasks and you get to decide how much they can see inside of the tasks that they can open. So maybe you wouldn't want them to see the description or the comments, for example. So I'll show you now what this view actually looks like when we copy the public link here. So this is the client-facing view, and we'll see it in just a moment. And because I was allowed to open up tasks, I can click to open it up, and I can only see the fields that have been specifically allowed to me. But it's the perfect way to share a high-level timeline with your clients. The last thing I wanted to note here is you might notice all of these lines in between all of my different tasks. And these are what are called dependencies. So I'll open up a task really quickly and give you some insight into how a dependency works. So this is how you can indicate that one task needs to wait on or block another task. So it's the perfect way to ensure a sequence for tasks that you're completing in a project. In this case, I can't start on training until I finish setting up my client's hierarchy, and I can't start this task until I've defined their user roles and account preferences. So you can set up these dependencies inside of a task by clicking on this button. So again, I can see the dependencies that have been set up already. But in addition, inside of the Gantt view, I can see at a high level all of the tasks that have dependencies set up for them, and I can actually reschedule dependencies in bulk. So just to show you, I'll delete this dependency for a moment, but by dragging and dropping this line to connect two tasks, I can actually set dependencies between the two tasks. Now, let's say my client is pressed for time and she can't get it done by the end of November, and she's asking, can we please push back the training a little bit? I can't complete it in this time frame. In the Gantt view, I can actually turn on the option to reschedule dependencies. So when I turn that on, I will be able to actually push out all of the tasks that are dependent on one another in just one big chunk. So it's a good way to change your dates in bulk for projects. The last thing that I wanted to touch on in relation to views here is another way that you could use that doc view that we covered earlier. So in here, I have created an invoice that you could create in a ClickUp doc to invoice clients for a service that you're providing. So again, you can see I've embedded an image, I've included rich editing. One really cool thing about the doc view in ClickUp is that you can save it as a template. So for example, here I have created a template from this doc, which is called training and onboarding. So once you create a doc template, you can use that anytime you create a new doc to invoice a new client. So as an example, if I add a new doc in here, inside of that doc, I can just load in that invoicing template. And I have a brand new fresh invoice to send to that new client. So it's a really nice way to just save yourself some time in the docs. The last thing I wanted to touch on inside of our folder here for this project I'm doing for my client is how you can set up recurring tasks. So one example here would be my quarterly business review meeting. I want to have ClickUp automatically make a task for me every 3 months or so to check in with this client and set a meeting with them. I really don't want to have to remember to create this manually, so I'm going to make this actually recur automatically. So first I'm going to open up the task, and underneath the calendar icon, I can set a date for my first quarterly review. So let's say my first review is going to be December 1st. Now, the next step is to click Set Recurring. And this is where I can actually set up a recurring schedule so that every time my task is closed out, a new one will be generated automatically. You can do this daily, weekly, monthly, periodically. In this case, I'm going to do a custom recurrence schedule. So I'm going to do every 3 months. And I'm going to do it by week. So I'm going to do on the first Monday. Now that I've set this up, I'm actually going to see on my calendar over here the highlighted days for the future when this task is going to recur. I'm also going to set a time here because I want to be reminded at a certain time to do this. One other option to note is you can choose if you want ClickUp to create a brand new duplicated task upon each recurrence, or you can just keep all of your recurrences in the same task window. In this case, I'm going to create a new task upon each recurrence because I want to have a place to keep notes on each distinct QBR. So we're going to create a new task, and I'm only going to have this repeat 5 times. All right, so we've saved that. And now let's see what happens when I close this task. So we've completed our first quarterly review. And we can see that the next task has been automatically generated. So I can just have that ready for me whenever I'm ready to do the next review. Let's create another standalone list in our projects folder as an example of another service you could manage in ClickUp. So I'm going to make a list for some custom training videos that I'm going to be creating for my clients. So again, you'll notice when I make this that lists mostly can live inside of a folder, but you can absolutely make them live as standalone lists too if you want to keep things really simple and you don't really feel like you need folders. So I have a list here for my custom videos. And the next thing that I'm going to add in would be a task for a video that I am making for a client. And this is going to be, the client is the name of the client. So I've made this new task and I'm going to click to open it up. And in here, I can add in some different information about what he wants me to create in this video. So let's say that he wants me to do a video for how to use our company templates in ClickUp. And he also wants me to create a video for how to use subtasks effectively in ClickUp. So in case you're new to ClickUp, just note, subtasks are the perfect way to create smaller action items that are related to the larger task. So in this case, my larger task is this job that the client needs me to get done, but he actually needs me to do a couple of different videos. So I've made a subtask for each of those videos so that I can work on them in a separate place. You can also add in checklists. So checklists, in contrast to subtasks, are about very simple to-dos that are just ticked off as you move through the task. A subtask gives you a lot of room to add attachments, have a description. These are really for just very simple line items. So for example, maybe I would create a checklist for video to-dos. And my checklist items would be things like draft scripts, approve scripts with client, etc. And when I make this checklist, I can just actually assign the whole thing to myself so that I can make sure that I know that I have to get them done. This is, the task level is also a great place where you can interact with clients as guests. So guests are people that really only need very limited access to see what you are working on in ClickUp. They'll only see the specific items you share with them, and you can actually set permissions for what they can do inside of the items you share. So let's say, for example, I wanted to invite my client here as a guest to this task so we can work on it together. So I do that in the sharing and permissions menu. And I'm going to enter in his email address here. Let's just say that this guy is my client. Now, when I share this with him, I can also choose if he should have full edit access, or maybe in this case, he should only be able to comment, or maybe even view only. So I can be a little bit more strict with him. A perfect way to loop your client in just for quick approval and notes would be via an assigned comment feature. So let's say, for example, I have a doc view that I need my client to review. So I'm going to mention him so that he'll get a little notification in ClickUp that he has to attend to this. And I'm going to link to a doc that I've created for his invoice. The way I'm going to do this is by mentioning the doc. So if you hit the @ key 3 times on your keyboard, you'll be able to see under the doc section all the possible docs that you can send to your client here. So I've linked to the doc to make it really easy for him to see what I mean. And the last step here is going to be to assign this comment to him. So by assigning the comment, he is going to see this as a line item when he opens up the task. So no matter how long this comment thread is, he can just click immediately to his assigned comment. And then once he takes a look at the invoice and approves it, he can resolve the comment so that I get a notification that he actually took action on this. You'll also notice that you can always quickly add attachments on the left-hand side of the task too, if you have a spreadsheet, even a Google Doc or a ClickUp Doc that you want to attach inside of your task. One other thing that I did want to mention actually before we leave this folder is the value of templates. So this is a pretty standard service that I offer. Onboarding and training clients in ClickUp is what I spend 80% of my time on. I don't really want to have to manually recreate this entire structure every single time I take on a new client. So what I'm going to do here is save this folder as a template. So the steps here would be to go to the templates menu for my folder and choose save as a template. Now, when you create this new template, if you're not the only person in your workspace, you might want to just share it with yourself so that no one else can mess around with your template. And then you can also choose what you want to import from the template. So you might want to import everything, but in this case, I don't want to carry over my watchers and I don't want to carry over my descriptions. So I'm going to save that as a template. And now when I have brought on a new client, I have that template available to me that I can instantly reuse. So I'm going to start by adding a new folder template into my project space by going to the Use a Template menu. And then I'm going to look up that onboarding template that we just made, client onboarding. Now, one last thing that I'm definitely going to want to do before I create this is remap the dates, because the old training dates that I set up here with my client aren't really useful anymore. So I'm going to choose to remap my dates. This will allow me to set up a desired first start date. So if I know when this client wants to start his onboarding, I can choose the first start date, and ClickUp will remap all of the subsequent dates off of that first start date that I indicate. Or maybe I know an end date that this client has to be done with all of his onboarding. So I'm going to set a final end date, and ClickUp will remap all of the previous dates off of that end date that I've put in. I also know that he is not going to work on the weekends, so I'm going to skip weekends. And then lastly, I'm going to import all tasks as open so they all start afresh in the to-do status. All right, so now we can see this new folder has been created. All of my tasks are there and my due dates have all been remapped. So they're all set up in accordance with the new client's needs. Cool. The last thing that I wanted to mention in our hierarchy is how you can manage billable hours and expenditures with custom fields. So I have a list here for some training documentation that my clients have asked me to create for them. So I have a task for each client that has requested documentation. Now, if we open up a task, we can see the time tracking feature. So this is the perfect place to keep track of billable hours as you're working on client tasks. You can either use the ClickUp timer to start the timer that way, or you can just enter a manual time log here. And you'll also notice that when you create these time logs, you can qualify if they are billable or not billable. You can also add a description or even a label here to kind of tag your time tracking in some way. You can also always click onto a previous time log if you want to edit it or maybe add a description here. Like for example, for my session on the 21st, I can edit my description a little bit here. And maybe I actually, put in the wrong start time here, the wrong end date. I can always save and edit and save those changes here. So in my list view, we can also see this time tracking column. So I can see for all of my different clients, how much time I've tracked on their projects. Beside that time tracking column, I have added a money custom field to keep track of my hourly rate for this service. So again, you can click create a new custom field in list view here. The one that I added in here was a money custom field, which I called rate per hour. And the last thing that I added here was a formula custom field. So with the formula custom field, you can actually calculate, you can add, subtract, multiply, or divide 2 different numeric fields. So what I've done here is I've pulled in the time tracking field that I have here, and then I've multiplied that times the rate per hour so that I can calculate the amount due by that client for the services that I've provided here. So that's a really easy, simple way you could use the formula field to just keep track of your regular hourly rate. All right, just a few other things that I wanted to touch on before we open it up for some questions. Let's chat about a couple of other ways that you can communicate with clients effectively without leaving ClickUp and going into your email. So I mentioned that you can share a task with a client as a guest, but if you have a situation like I have up here where you're working on a whole folder or a whole list related to a client, just note that you can also share a folder or a list with a guest as well. So you can always enter in your guest email address for a folder or a list in the guest menu, and then choose what permission level they should have in that shared item. Another cool thing that I wanted to show you is in the dashboard area. So I'm going to quickly switch over to a different workspace to showcase this. Your dashboard area is the perfect place to get a 500-foot view of all of the project progress and just see everything that you're working on for your clients without necessarily delving into all of the nitty-gritty tasks. So when you're thinking about creating different dashboards, ordinarily people will create different dashboards for teams or maybe for big projects that they're working on. In this case, I have actually created a client portal dashboard. So this is a place that I've created for my client to show them everything that they need to know about this project that I'm working on for them. So this dashboard can be shared as well with guests. So if you wanted to enter in your guest email here and share the dashboard with him, that's all you need to do. And I'll just explain quickly the different widgets that I've set up here. So in the upper left corner, we just have a YouTube widget. So I can just add in a video for my client to watch to teach them more about the project I'm doing for them. You can also add in a text widget. So the text widget here has been set up to just give my client a quick overview of what this dashboard is all about. And then the client also has a checklist here that they have to complete once they're moving through the dashboard so that I know they're doing the work I need them to do. The chat widget is a great place to have a conversation with a client directly in a dashboard. So if you just want to talk about, project progress at a high level or any questions they might have about the project, your guest and you can have a chat inside of this widget here to manage that. The task list widget here will show you just a simple list of tasks from whatever location you pull into the widget. So you'll notice here that I'm just pulling in tasks from one particular folder. You don't have to pull in all of the different stuff you're working on into this widget. You can just pick what you need. And I'm grouping them by status so that my client can see the tasks that he needs to get done and keep track of what's been closed and what's still open. Finally, I have a work request form. So we talked about that form a little bit earlier, but what I've done here is create a custom embed widget. So I've taken that shareable link from the form view and I've dropped it into the embed widget so that my client can actually just submit a task for me directly inside of the dashboard. And they won't even have to navigate ClickUp, they'll just enter the form right in here. So there are lots of different widgets that you can explore. Those were just a few of the best kind of client-facing widgets that you can check out. But I'll show you just briefly another dashboard that I've set up as an example of a dashboard you could create for yourself just to monitor progress on your end. So this dashboard is called Client Projects. So the first one that I have at the top is a time reporting widget. So this one is for hours to be billed. And it's showing me all of my billable time logs from this month, but you can customize whatever time range you want to see. And I'm only focusing, of course, on myself and only showing billable time. So in here, I can click on my name and see the different time logs I've had, and these are my notes attached to each time log. And then I can even edit those time logs directly from the widget. So I can check in on what task this time log applied to, when did it happen exactly, all of that information is available to me. You can export this as well. So if you ever wanted to share your timesheet with a client, you could just send them the export here. I've also created a simple pie chart widget to keep track of project tasks for this month for myself. So this is grouping my tasks by status, and it's only focused in on that project space that I created earlier. I've also added a filter so that only tasks that have a due date of this month are going to show up. So this just gives me a high-level overview of the tasks that I need to get done this month. This is another one of those task list widgets, which I have filtered to only show tasks in that new lead status, so that anytime someone sends a form to me that I need to look at and contact, I'll see that they'll pop up in this widget, and I can even click to open up the task directly so that I can contact them. The last thing I'll show you here is the portfolio widget. And this one is a great way to get a high-level overview of folders and lists that you've created and link them all together in one view. So for example, here, I've created an onboarding progress portfolio for that client that we were in the folder for earlier, and I've linked the different lists in their folder to the portfolio. And then at a high level, I can gauge, what's on track, how many tasks have been completed, is there anything overdue? So lots of helpful information that I can gain at a high level about these different lists. All right, very last thing to cover before I take your questions is our goals feature. Goals are found in the lower left corner of your screen, and these are the perfect way to set a high-level initiative that you can break down into smaller, more manageable pieces, which we call targets. So these can be either shared with a client, or they can be just an internal goal for yourself. So for example, maybe I could add in a goal for a client and me to complete for completing onboarding in 30 days. When I create this goal, I can set an owner, so determine who's responsible for the goal. And I can choose if I want to make it private. Maybe in this case, I would just share it with my clients and set a date for when the goal should be finished. Lastly, you can add a description if you want to share with your client what this goal is all about. So we've set the high-level objective. Now we have to create targets to measure how we're going to achieve this goal. So there are a few different target types that you can create. I'm going to create a target for complete, kick off, and setup. So we're both the owners of this because we both have something at stake in making sure that this gets done. And now we can set up the type of target. So it could be a number-based target. So for example, maybe you wanted to send out 5 help docs that you've written for a client. You could do a number-based target. You could also do a simple true or false target type, or a currency-based target type. But in this case, I'm going to do the task target type. So I'm going to link in specific tasks that as I complete them, I'll be able to see my goal progress update in real time. So for example, let's say I'm going to link that align on hierarchy structure task to my goal. So now we can see that task is linked to the goal, and I can even open up the task directly from my goal here. One cool thing to note is that if a task is linked to a goal, that's going to be noted inside of the task. And once I finish this, I'm also going to see the progress of my goal update in real time. So it's a really great way to hold yourself accountable and identify things that aren't getting done related to the goal and figure out what might be standing in your way. So those are a few general tips to hopefully help you get started in structuring out your freelance projects. But I'm going to open it up now and take a look at the Zoom Q&A tab for any questions you may have. Carolyn, you ask, with regards to the CRM example, can you set up and connect your email to be recording the correspondence automatically with a client? Yeah, so actually, this brings up a feature that we are hopefully going to be releasing this week. So I'll actually show you a quick sneak peek of this. Just a moment. All right. So this is a really cool feature that's really going to change up the way you communicate via email with your clients. So basically, when this is out inside of a task comment thread, you will be able to send an email directly from ClickUp. So you'll be able to link your email account here, put in the recipient's email, and then add in your subject and your body of your email, as well as a custom signature at the bottom that you can make look really nice. And you can send this directly to a client or a lead without even leaving the platform. And once they respond to the email, that will actually come in directly in the comment thread in your ClickUp task. So you can have a whole email chain going inside of ClickUp without your client knowing that that's what you're doing. It'll look like you're just sending them a normal email. So that's not available quite yet, but it is going to be coming hopefully in the next week. Ralph, you ask, can we create a calendar as a form entry? And can we send it an email with a task and reminder in ClickUp? This would be for notification and scheduling a new potential client. So we can't really create a calendar as a form. Sounds to me like you're kind of looking for a way for the client to like book a meeting with you. Maybe I'm misunderstanding that, but I wanted to note that we do have a calendar view. So if someone filled out a form that had a due date field in it, you could create a calendar view So you could see tasks created from that form and their different dates. So that would probably be the best way to do that. But we don't really have a calendar form as you're describing. Graham, thanks so much for your kind feedback. I'm glad that this has been informative for you, and really great to have you here in attendance. The email feature is going to be super awesome. I'm really excited for that as well. Bradley, you ask, are digital forms / contracts to have clients or vendors sign feature coming? So I know that that's been a request we've had. It sounds kind of like you want something like a DocuSign feature in ClickUp. It's been requested, but I don't know that we have any immediate plans for that. One thing that I will say is that we have a Zapier integration with DocuSign, which I know some people have used, so you might want to explore that, but that would be a feature request. And actually, one thing I'll mention on that note is, if any of you aren't aware, feedback.clickup.com is an awesome place to explore what features are on the horizon, and also share what you'd like to see implemented next. So for example, let's see if there is a DocuSign kind of feature request. Let's see if in the integrations area we have anything like that. Yeah, so you can see here, if you do a quick search, these are requests that we've had. They're not planned yet, but we'll always note here if something is in progress or under review or planned. Sasa, you ask, will you be able to schedule email sending once the feature is live? I don't believe that will be coming in the first iteration, like sending out an automatic email at a certain time, but that is also a great feature suggestion, which we could definitely take into consideration in the future. Ralph, you ask, is there a shareable calendar that connects with ClickUp and can be embedded on a web page? So I did want to note that we have several calendar integrations. So depending on which external calendar you use, you can sync your scheduled tasks to ClickUp. Now, one thing to note is that with the Google Calendar integration, you can sync scheduled tasks to Google, and then changes made to those tasks from Google will sync back to ClickUp. However, events added to your Google Calendar at this time won't be automatically added to ClickUp. The same goes for the Apple Outlook integration. It's just a one-way sync to Apple and Outlook. But I do know that some people actually take a public link to a ClickUp calendar view and they embed that on a web page, or with our embed view, you could also embed a link to your external calendar inside of ClickUp, like your Outlook calendar or something, or your Google Calendar, to see all of your events inside of ClickUp. Craig, thanks very much for the kind feedback. I'm glad that you're enjoying the webinar. Karina, you say, will emails from within ClickUp be able to have attachments? Yes, they will. So you'll be able to add an attachment into the comment, which will be included in the email chain. All right, so I'll stick around for another minute or so just in case there are any final questions. But again, thank you everyone so much for taking the time to attend the webinar. I hope you found it to be informative, and it's always great to see so many people in attendance. Again, we'll be sending the recording to you shortly, hopefully in a couple hours once it's been processed, and I'll also be posting it on our website later today. Inside of your workspace, under the question mark button, you can also find tons of helpful resources to help you get started with the platform, from onboarding materials to teach you how to create, spaces, folders, and lists. You can also watch a previous webinar or register for a future webinar, or you can connect with our support team. We have an awesome support team that works really hard to answer all of your questions, so we'd love to hear from you if you'd like to reach out. Yeah, and our next webinar, if we take a look, will be coming up next week, and it will be on automation. So that should be a really exciting one. But we have quite a few different ones coming up, so you can explore which ones might be interesting to you at clickup.com/webinar. Yeah, let me take just one more question from Kevin. You asked, do you have suggestions for tracking retainer time, i.e. 10 hours per month? Yeah, I think this would be a great question to reach out to our support team to get a little more insight into your use case. The time tracking feature is definitely the best way to keep track of those logs, but please reach out to our support team because we'd be curious to learn a little bit more about what you're trying to accomplish. But again, thank you so much for all of your time, and we hope to hear from you soon. Have a great day.